It's all off the record right now. Okay,
Right.
we go live. Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful having all of you here. And this is the second last program in the IIM Indore Free Press Journal series. And we have Niranjan Hirandani, Himanshu Rai, who's the director of IIM Indore, will introduce him to you. But before we begin, just a couple of remarks. We owe thanks to our outreach partners, Radio 92.7 Big FM, and to Money Life Magazine, both of whom have helped us a lot. One more thing that I'd like to mention is that both IIM Indore and Free Press Journal have worked this series to make sure that everyone knows what options are there before India after COVID-19. And one of the sectors that we badly mauled, not just mauled, is the construction, real estate development sector. And there's no other person better than Niranjan Hirandani, as Himanshu Rai will explain. Himanshu, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bhaskar. A very good afternoon to you, all our viewers. I hope you all are safe and healthy and taking very good care of yourself and your families. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to have with us Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, who's the co-founder and MD, Hiranandani Group, and has recently started a distinct business unit, Hiranandani Communities. Currently, he also spearheads the National President for National Real Estate Development Council, NAREDCO, which works under the aegis of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. And he's also the president of ASSOCHAM, the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He has been conferred with the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Management with his thesis on real estate. Born in 1950, he's the son of Padma Bhushan honored ENT specialist, Dr. L.H. Hiranandani. Niranjan is a chartered accountant, and he did his FCA from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Started his career as a chartered accountant professor, and then ventured into the textile business in the late 1970s. In 1981, with the establishment of Hiranandani Group, he finally embarked his entrepreneurship journey by foraying into the real Indian real estate. His group is also engaged in data centers, logistics, industrial parks, besides commercial real estate, education, healthcare, hospitality, infrastructure, and organized retail. So it's such a pleasure to have you with us here, Niranjan. And before Bhaskar and I start bombarding you with questions, and we have tons of them, and we take questions from the audience, why don't you tell us, how does the real estate look like in India post-COVID-19?
1 second, can I interrupt here? I'd like to mention the audience that just last week, he even started a university. Just a small mention.
Absolutely. Over to you, Niranjan.
Your voice is gone.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Mr. Himanshu Roy. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhaskar, and very kind of both of you to have chosen me to speak and represent the subject today of real estate. It's, after all, my bread and butter business. So it's obviously something which I would be happy to speak about. Real estate, as you are well aware, has been going through a traumatic experience in the last 2 years. In reality, the kind of shakeup which took place somewhere around the time of demonetization, followed by the shakeup due to GST introduction, which took time to really stabilize. There was, of course, the RERA, which was a good law in terms of for the customers and consumers, but it took time for the industry to actually cope up with it. IBC, which came in, also brought a lot of shakeup into the real estate industry. ILFS debacle compounded the entire offense because about 50% of the real estate business credits have been financed by the NBFCs as a sector. So with the ILFS actually collapsing, the funding in relating to NBFCs coming to the real estate sector was bad. January 2020 was a turnaround where everybody said, happy happy, happy, happy. Everything is looking goody, goody, good. So everyone was smiling, and the real estate business was actually turning back again in order to see happier time. And lo and behold, we got the COVID times, which actually again hit the industry extremely badly. Having seen what every other industry is faced, the only thing compounding the offense in the real estate industry, amongst various other offenses, was the fact of migrant labor. Now, as all of us know, real estate and road construction employs 15% of the labor of India. So 15% of the workforce of India, so the second highest workforce in India is real estate and road construction. So after agriculture, we employ the most maximum number of people in our industry. We also contribute 7% of the GDP of the country. So that's a very big number in terms of a single business operation that takes place, a very large number. Agriculture contributes only 3% of the GDP of the country. But of course, the food is so important and critical, and so is shelter and housing. And we see quite a contrast in our country. What is the contrast? We live in the city of Mumbai. The city of Mumbai is the richest city in India. And in spite of that, 50% of the population of my beautiful city lives in jhopatpattis or slums. And that's the sad part of the whole thing, that ultimately we are not able to provide food, clothing, shelter. Shelter being a need of the people. We haven't provided good shelter for the people of our country. And I think that's a detriment. And that's why when the Prime Minister 5 years ago put out the policy for housing for all by 2022, I was delighted. He also did the policies in terms of affordable housing, which has worked very well, not in Mumbai, not in Delhi, but in other parts of the country, it has definitely worked very well. And almost 1 crore houses will be constructed in the next 3 years in the affordable housing segment. So in reality, there has been a breakthrough in the sector tremendously because of the policies of the Prime Minister and the segment, Mr. Hardeep Puri, who's been the housing minister. A huge amount of work has been done by the ministry and really need to be complimented for the work that they have done. However, looking at the fact of what the industry is into, there have been lots and lots of difficulties. First of all, let's take the worst scenario which has happened, and let's look at the NCR, where the Delhi region of India. The NCR has more than 350,000 apartment building blocks under construction, which have been sold 10 years ago and not delivered. One of the companies is Unitec, which is the second largest listed real estate company in India. Unfortunately, the government of India had to, under the orders of the Supreme Court, had to take over Unitec. And incidentally, I have been appointed by the Supreme Court as one of the directors of Unitec to try and turn around the problem of almost delivery of 16,000 apartments which have not been delivered. Just one company I'm talking about. So as we can see, there have been multiplicity of problems which have taken place in terms of the real estate as a business. There are various reasons for all this calamity which has taken place. But here we cannot look back into the situation. What we really need to do is to look forward. How can we solve this problem? Because ultimately, we are not here to talk about history as to why this has happened in Mumbai, why has it happened in NCR, why has it happened in all the places. I think it is good enough that various agencies and history can write about it, good and bad, about what people have done, rightly and wrongly. So what is it that we really need to do in terms of how to look at it forward? Because that is what is really going to really take the cake. First and foremost, we have to understand that over a period of years, real estate has become the most heavily taxed industry in India. More tax than tobacco.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the story. So when you have almost 35 to 40% of the value of your apartment which you are buying is in terms of taxes, direct, indirect, local duties, municipal taxes, income taxes, GST, additional FSI tax, development charges which are there. All these charges, when you put it together, it is very, very, very expensive. This is something like the petrol you buy, that a large amount of it goes into the tax system. And it is quite surprising that you do it into a product which is the need of the nation. And I think one of the issues that needs to be sorted out, both at the local level, means the corporations, the state level, where the stamp duty and other charges are levied, and the central government, where we have the GST and the other costs and taxes which are there. Also, the second major issue, which really is a concern which has happened, is the issue on the policy of the Reserve Bank of India and the credit policies which take place through the banking system. It is very unfortunate that the credits available to this industry has been absolutely in difficulty. It compounded, as I mentioned earlier, on the basis that NBFCs, A, became incapable of lending, and B, when the disaster took place, real estate was also floundering. So that compounded many of the cases where even part lending was done by NBFCs. They didn't have the capacity to give the balance lending, and no other companies and banks and financial institutions would take it. So we have the second major issue, which is the liquidity issue in the real estate business. And this is where we are representing. In fact, we are in communication with the Honorable Finance Minister. We have a meeting with her tomorrow, and we hope that we will be able to get something to help the industry in a little better manner than we have been able to get in the past. So we are looking forward to that. The next important factor is the Reserve Bank of India. I think the Reserve Bank of India needs to work on a credit policy which will help the real estate industry, which is also floundering. One of the things that we have represented is a one-time rollover of the debts that are there, not only for real estate, but almost all industries are floundering. Look at the aviation, look at hotels, look at SMEs and other parts. So all these need a one-time rollover. Surprisingly, in 2008, when we had the Lehman crisis, the Reserve Bank did a one-time rollover for all the monies. And of course, at the option of the banks. But at that time, we didn't have a problem at all because the banks did a one-time rollover. We took care of the issues. Each bank and financial institution handled that issue, and people were given that rollover. And all the companies, financial institutions could do that depending on a case-to-case basis. So it is our representation that we would request the Reserve Bank of India to do it once again. Yes, they have done an extension of time for the purposes of paying back this loan. That has happened. But that's not enough. Today's case of the COVID story, with the movement of migrant laborers going away, the delay in terms of the projects being completed, all these become very difficult. Let me put one more additional point in the issue of liquidity, is the regulation of RERA, a very good section which has brought about transparency in the real estate sector for the customer, and also given protection of the money which is paid by the buyer, which is escrowed in a separate account. But this creates a problem for the real estate developer in terms of the needs of his finances. So let's say I have two projects, Project A, Project B, and I have very good sales in Project A. So I use the money and I do the construction. I have small sales in Project B, but Project B also I must complete because I've sold some of the apartments. Now the surpluses of Project A cannot be put into Project B because RERA does not permit it. So these are the kind of idiosyncrasies which are there. Good law, very good law. I'm very happy with the law, but it means that the developer needs additional funding and financing. And probably in this COVID story, some sort of flexibility may have to be permitted in order to see that these balance equations which have become imbalanced can be taken care of. The next important point in real estate is the issue of strategically requirement of last mile funding. The government of India, the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister have accepted that this has to be done. So projects which are stuck, almost as I mentioned to you, 3.5 lakh, almost let's say 35% of all projects stuck in the stage that they are is in the NCR, in the country. So I think it was created that way. So Finance Minister correctly put up what is called the Swami Fund. It is managed by the State Bank of India, and it's 25,000 crores, of which 10,000 crores is contributed by the federal, by the union government, and the rest of it is done by various funds. These funds are being examined, and the last mile funding for stuck projects is happening. Unfortunately, due to COVID and the situation which is happening, we don't need 25,000 crores. We need 1,50,000 crores. So the situation is such that fortunately, many of the banks and financial institutions are ready to put up these funds. So we are now asking the Finance Minister to approve that further funds could also be set up in order to sort the situation. Lots of other minor and small issues at the state government levels, like stamp duty, needs to be done. Ready-reckoner rates needs to be changed, and the law in terms of the income tax needs to be modified. These are lots and lots of issues that need to be taken care of if you want transactions to be done in the difficult COVID times. The other revolutionary thing which I predict will happen post-COVID times is a rent policy, which is likely to come out. It's already put up on the website of the Housing Ministry at the center. Mr. Hardeep Puri has been taking very proactive steps in order to make this happen. And he's now, of course, busy with aviation too. And now he would bring in this rent policy. The idea basically being that in the good old days, you could get places on affordable rent. Today, it is difficult to do so. And it doesn't make sense for institutions, developers to actually build residential houses on rent. So what do you find? A lot of companies all over the country, in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Delhi, Pune, all the other, Hyderabad, all are building commercial spaces on rent. We expect that once the housing policy is changed in terms of rental housing policy, because the ROI is lower, they need to make certain changes in the income tax and other acts, which I hope will come up also, which is part of our representations to government. And if that happens, you will find two things happening. One, you will get a lot more houses on rent. Number two, you will get affordable housing on rent, which is really going to be the miracle that is going to happen to India, and especially in terms of people to do. And the third, which the Prime Minister just recently announced, was how to create housing for migrant and other labor that will move across the country. A big story in that. Now, let me tell you, if the government pushes this story on housing, and Mr. Gadkari, who's doing a fantastic job on roads and highways, is able to carry out the works to be done, let me give you a prediction. My prediction is that by next March of 2021, we can bring our GDP back to 7% plus. I repeat,
wow. Okay.
If the government focuses on the housing in terms of the housing policies which need a change, RBI fixes the issue of credit and other policies to be done, and we move the road sector like Mr. Gadkari is doing it in terms of it in doing the multiplier effect of the economy. So if you look at housing, we affect 269 industries, whether it's cement, whether it's steel, whether it's paints, whether it's copper, whether it's wiring, whether it's lighting, whether it's air conditioning, it is glass, it is plastics, it is kitchen equipment, it is this, that, and the other. 269 industries are directly and indirectly positively affected. So you get a growth of GDP, not only of the real estate as a business, which is 7% of the economy of the country, but a multiplier effect. And the last thing is, that go to any country in the world, historically, Mr. Himanshu Roy, and take the records and see. All which had GDP growths beyond 10% focused on road development and real estate and infrastructure. All the countries in the world. The highways in America were not made for cars. They were made because of the depression. Employment was to be done. The autobahns of Germany were not meant for fast cars. They were made because German people needed jobs. And during depression, the government decided to make roads and highways. The GDP of America is judged by housing starts. The growth of double digit in China took place only because you had real estate and development and infrastructure, roads, highways, and of course, railways. These are the factors which cause. People only think about manufacturing in China. That's not the complete story. 60% of the GDP growth is not manufacturing. In fact, 75% is not manufacturing. 75% is housing, roads, infrastructure, bullet trains, airports, ports, and other infrastructure. So India has an avenue to do it. Yes, we want the Make in India, which we need to get that story right. And the Prime Minister is correct. And I completely support him. But let him focus more on housing. Let him focus more on roads, ports, highways, bridges, and all these aspects which are there. And if we do so, and there's enough capital worldwide available for the purposes of doing it, and I can give you many examples. If you ask me in those question answer part of it, I can give you many examples of extraordinary success in these areas that are to be done. I'm very happy that the Prime Minister focuses on Make in India, Atmanirbhar India, the reason that housing for all must happen. We need to focus on all these. Education also needs an equal focus. And I think if we can do that right from the primary to the other education, it will be there. IT sector grew because there was non-interference and low taxation by the government. Do that in the education sector. Allow privatization of sectors in education and growth to be taken there. We will be number one in education. Nalanda used to be the years and years when people used to come from abroad in the good old days to come to India to learn from us about education. Today, our children spend billions of dollars to go to the United States to get education. Can we reverse this trend? Not only about Make in India of manufacturing, but can we make in India an education system which also creates a paradigm which will happen? If we can do all this, you will have the pride of India. Atmanirbhar India will also bring about national pride of whatever we are. And once we bring national pride, we will have a different way in order to look after the economy. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm quite open to all questions that you may have. Real estate is, of course, a part of my life. So I could go on for maybe a couple of hours, but I will stop over here and leave it to any question answers that you may have in terms of this segment of the economy, or since I'm in ASSOCHAM, any other segment of the economy also, and also into education, because I do that also in some sort of a way. So I look forward to anything that you may want to ask me in these segments. Thank you very much. I'm very honored. I'm very honored to be here.
Oh, we were wonderstruck. We were wonderstruck by the range of things you talked about.
And there was so much information in there, Niranjan. I mean, apart from talking about the problems, you also spoke about the solutions. And yes. I really hope that those solutions are carried forward. And at least we will do our bit as a management institution and as a great newspaper. We will do our bit to take all of these ahead. But I just wanted one clarification, since you spoke about the problems, but then if I have to look at the construction sector, there are four very distinct categories. So you have the big construction projects, you have the super specialty construction or luxury housing, then you have the middle class housing, and then you have the affordable homes. So are the problems the same across these four categories, or are they different?
To be honest with you, they're like chalk and cheese. They're so different that actually they really cannot be correlated. And but the best part is about housing. It is right from the caveman to different places in the north, whether it is Kashmir and you will stay in houseboats, or you go to the hills of the Shimlas and places that you do, or you go to urban towns and areas that you do. The differences are stark, but everything is similar. Because if you start from the kitchen where the food is cooked to the place that you sleep and enjoy and work and where the families get together, all housing is the same. So the home is where the heart is, and the size and shapes may change in terms of it. But as you must have seen what happened in the case of migrant labor, what was the first thing when everybody got fearful? They headed back home. So the house has not to be a house anymore. You must create a home. The unfairness of it all is the fact that when migrant labor comes and stays for 20 years in your city, why is it they have not converted it into a home? Because they have not got a shelter for which they can have a pride of place and ownership. If I had converted all my jhopatpattis of Mumbai into an ownership place, even if it was small, I promise you, people would not go back to stay in UP and Jharkhand and other places. It is because we forgot they were only given shelter. Shelter is not enough. You need to give them a home. Even if it's a small home, a home is a home. This is something which we have missed out and forgotten. And this is my sorriness that I belong to an industry which has not done justice to the people of India. I do hope that in the rest of my life, I'll be able to partially make up for the loss of time in terms of not being able to do this justice. I'm glad that the Prime Minister speaks about it all the time and that our housing minister has been working on it quite diligently, even along with us. That I'm really proud that we are going to work and do it. It's not enough. I know that it is too slow. We need to do that. We cannot have a pride of having the largest slum in Asia. It's not so nice. I would rather say that this was the largest redevelopment in the entire world of doing Dharavi overnight. And I think it's possible to do so. Money is available all over the world for such projects. So I don't see any problem in relating to that. Look at the last 5 years in Mumbai. Look at the infrastructure that we have taken up. We have 190 kilometers of Western Railway, Central Railway, and harbour lines. We are adding 300 kilometers of metro in the next 5 years. We are doing a cross-harbour bridge of 22 kilometers, which will connect enough land on the other side of Mumbai, equal to twice the land of Mumbai from Panvel to Karjar. Look at the kind of situation that you have in terms of a coastal road, which will open up the western suburbs. Look at the Pinjal River project, which will bring 24/7 water to Mumbai for every citizen in the Mumbai metropolitan region. Look at the new airport, which is going to come up, which will add connectivity, which is there. This is 3 lakh crores, and all these projects are online. So there is not a question of capital anymore. Capital is available all over the world. It is the honesty and integrity of creating projects. Why did Mr. Gadkari always tell us, there's no shortage of money? It's a shortage of intent and commitment and promise to the people of India that we need to do. And I do believe that we will win. We have to do it right. We can't wait for COVID to get over. We just have to start it today.
Well, I mean, Ranjan, when you talk about these things, you are the head of Naredco. You're also the president of ASSOCHAM. I mean, it can't get bigger than that. So at least Bhaskar and I would assume that you have the government's eyes and ears. So then what's stopping us?
I don't think there is anything stopping us. Every person plays a role in life. The media will play a role. Academicians like you will play a role. Journalists like Mr. Bhaskar will play a role. All of us are in a democratic situation, important people who, if really properly put up, will be able to influence the governments of the day in order to do it. Leadership is fantastic. I mean, I haven't seen a stronger leadership, maybe except Indira Gandhi in that period of time. Barring that, we probably have the strongest leadership we ever had since independence. So the extent of strength of the Prime Minister is undoubtable. There is no question about his ability to be able to do it. Execution seems to still be a caution. And I think we need to work on that execution part of it in a much bigger way, brighter way that we can possibly do it. Also means that there has to be an equal commitment from the people of India. Look at the idea. You do a lockdown, you open the lockdown. Look at the behavior of the people. Ridiculous. I mean, they just don't be disciplined enough. Japan became fine because they are disciplined as a race. And we need to work on a little more discipline as people of India. So, like you said, yes, we all play our roles. I have to play my own role, whether at ASSOCHAM, NAREDCO, as an educationist, running a hospital, or any other thing that I do. But the point is, ultimately, if I can't do enough for my people, if I'm going to have people walk 1,000 kilometers to go back home, when my trains are sitting in the yard and the buses are there in the depots, something is wrong somewhere. I don't know what it is, but it's wrong. We need to correct that wrong, that never again in the history of India will this happen again. We have to document this history and say, irrespective of what the consequences are in the future, this will never be happened again. Maybe we need a constitution amendment to say that. I don't care, because it cannot be repeated. These are things which are base necessities. You talk about a country with democracy. How can you have this kind of thing happen? Somebody said it's politics. That's nonsense. I don't believe it. I think we have to have a more committed people of our country to be able to manage these things. So we will succeed. I have a full belief that we will be able to do it, and we can do it. But if I thought that we don't have the capacity, I promise you I wouldn't waste your time or my time in making these statements. It is simply because, sir, I do believe that we can do it, and we have the innate capacity to do it, is why I am making these statements or making the representations to government. We can eliminate slums. There is no reason why we can't. We can eliminate Dharavi. We can reconstruct Dharavi into one of the best places on earth. Why should it just be a redevelopment? Why can't we create a paradigm and say that this place will actually reconfigure into one of the best properties in the entire country, if not the entire world? And we can do it because it has the potential to do it, because of its location, because of the industry, because of the people who are there. They are second to none in the world. I admire the type of people who work and live in Dharavi and still be able to produce wealth into our cities. I'm proud of them.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so great that you brought in this element, because this is one thing, Ranjan, we cannot afford to have as human beings. Human dignity, that cannot be actually violated the way it got done this time. So I'm so glad that you brought this point up. Bhaskar.
Niranjan, there are two questions that I have. The first question is mine, the others from the audience. With work for home becoming more important and more becoming a reality after COVID, there is a feeling that many offices prefer to work from home, and that might reduce the demand for houses, for offices, for commercial areas. Your view, sir?
Of course, change is bound to take place. But the point is that I don't think everybody can work from home. I don't think it works for every type of business or every type of activity. But there are lots of activity where I think people will work from home. So you will find some changes taking place, but you will need bigger houses. If both the husband and wife are going to work from home, you'll need an extra room in the residential space.
Absolutely.
So I don't see any problem in that. In fact, you'll need bigger houses for everybody, or most home space for the residential houses, whether they take it on ownership or they take it on rent. You'll certainly, if both the husband and wife are working and the children are small, then you still need a bigger house than that.
Yes.
And I don't know whether that is feasible or not. As far as commercial is concerned, you're absolutely right. This change is taking place. But so is co-living, so is co-working, so is rental housing. So the best part of this country or any country in the world in terms of housing is that the type of requirement of commercial and residential space will change.
Okay.
And change for the better. When we built up Powai, people wondered what we were doing in a faraway place. Today, it's a good place to reside, a good place to work. It is a good place to live. You have a good quality of life. We have 100 acres of gardens and forests in the area. We have education in that area. We have the IIT across the road. We have schools, colleges, hospitals, you name it, it's all there. Now, the question is, can I create such islands of excellence by the 10,000s all over the country? If we can do that, that's good enough. You don't need to really do much more. If we can change Dharavi into something else, can we not do more? So what you're saying is right. Change is imperative, but change does not, see, as long as the GDP of India improves and the per capita GDP of everybody in the country will improve, which I hope it will soon. We can't be the fourth largest GDP in the world, but we have maybe 139th in number when we come to per capita GDP. Or was it 149th in the world or 139th in the world? Himanshu Roy will probably correct me. But what I meant is that you can't have a rich country and a poor people.
Correct.
We want rich people too. Why should only the country be rich and the people be poor? There's no need for it. We can be rich. The country can be rich. And there is no reason to understand that. The reason why China is becoming expensive is because the country and the people are becoming rich. So labor costs have gone up. And we are not even able to take advantage of the fallout in terms of labor, which is taking place into the country. So my challenge is, yes, changes will take place, and they should, and they will, and why not? And will it change in terms of demand? I don't know. The answer is yes, and could be no, and maybe. My view is, if the GDP of the country grows up, residential demand will go up, commercial demand will go up, and the world demand will go up in terms of IT and other spaces. But yes, maybe more bigger houses. I don't know. If they do, I'm happy. If they want more commercial space, I'm happy. I'm happy as long as the country becomes more wealthier and people are richer.
Yes. Okay. One of the things that you mentioned, and this is a question for the audience, is that Bombay and Delhi, two of the places where you have more slums, where poverty and wealth juxtaposed next to each other. How do you bring about affordable houses in these two large metropolises?
It's not difficult at all.
Okay.
Yeah. All we got to do is identify lands, pieces of lands. There are enough lands and lands around the city of Mumbai. Some of them are salt pan lands, which making salt, but they can make houses. There are areas in the periphery of Mumbai, like Navi Mumbai, like Panvel, like Karjat, all these places where we will connectivity with metros. We can make as many affordable houses that you want. The problem is land cost. And that is linked with what the government's intention in terms of how we really need to price land. Because government acquires the lands and auctions them out at the highest price. So the most expensive land in Mumbai is the one sold by government in MMRDA. The most expensive land in New Mumbai is sold by Sitco to the private people and to the government. So, I mean, you have to have your own priority. Do you want to make affordable housing? Sitco has done affordable housing too. So if they focus more on affordable housing and we really focus onto it, there's no reason why this cannot be done. The question is, it's like a war. You got to decide that we want to win this war of poverty. We want to win this war on housing. And there is no reason why we cannot win. The capital is available. We have all the materials in India for the purposes of construction of affordable housing. We have the technology, we have the workforce, we have the labor, we have everything that is possible to do. All you got to say is, let's go for it. And in the National Capital Region, you already have housing available in the Noida and other regions at 3,000 rupees a foot, as many houses as you really want. As soon as we solve this issue of liquidity, I think we'll have large number of houses available there. As soon as the metro and the suburban rail is connected to Panvel and Karjat, you will be able to get enough land over there, which will also be there. So all you got to do is to get somebody which is, in the government who will say, nothing doing, I'm going to focus on housing. I'm going to focus on Dharavi. And our housing minister just made that statement a couple of days ago in Maharashtra. Okay. And he's a wonderfully strong man. He got over COVID. He beat the shit out of COVID also. So I think if he can beat the virus COVID, I'm sure he will beat the housing problem also in Maharashtra.
Brilliant. Okay. You also gave us a good piece of news, that is rental will come in once again. It's true. Now, if rental comes in the way it is meant to, people would love to invest in a house if they can reasonably, securely give it on rent and take it back when the rent contract expires. This means two things: contracts and making investment-friendly policies. How, as the head of ASSOCHAM, would you go about persuading the government to get these two things done?
Okay, so at the central government, we have done it. It's there. Okay. It's on the website of the Government of India. So you can have a look at it and see. They're waiting for your suggestions, if any, and it will be done. The state governments then have to, subject to various provisions of the state, because land being a state subject, the states also have to follow that policy. We have the leave and license policy in Maharashtra, which is partly covers that already. So in Maharashtra, you don't have that kind of a problem. But the rest of the policy, in terms of what you mentioned, Mr. Bhaskar, of it being investor friendly, is what is going to happen by the law which is going to come in. So I think once that comes in, and also the finance minister is willing to give a few of the needs which are required for the purpose. For example, let's take an example. In the good old days, when Jamshedpur was put up, the Tatas put housing also. Today, if they put up a factory, they'll never put up housing. Take the case of Godrej. When they put up the factories, they put up the housing.
Some of the best places they have.
Best places. Now today, let's say Reliance, Reliance in Mumbai may be employing 2 lakh people. I don't know. I'm just making a guess. How many people would they provide housing for? Almost none. Probably, I'm saying 0.25% of the people. Now, let's presume you gave incentives to Reliance or to Hiranandani or to HDFC or to all the banks that I incentive to Free Press. I give an incentive to Free Press that you build houses which you can give for the purposes of rental, not only for your own employees, even otherwise to give it on rent, similar to what you have done in the case of Free Press Journal building at Free Press Road and at Nariman Point. Why not make 500 such buildings which are rented out by the Free Press or by Indian Express or by Times of India or any other group that can be done, or any other person or any other company in the country? If we did that and we made it worthwhile for you to do it, you'd get enough rental housing in the next 5 years beyond going over your years. They'll put boards to be let, like used to take place in the post-independence days. So there's nothing that we cannot do. It's only a question of, targeting. I remember the story of Abdul Kalam, our ex-prime minister, who was the rocket man of India, and he was given a budget of 10% of NASA to go to space. Everybody said that he could not do it. But it's the Indian mind and Indian ingenuity and Indian enterprise that made us in 10%. It was 13% of the budget of NASA that we went into outer space. Now, you can imagine, somebody would have said, "Arey, iske paas paise nahi hai. Ye kaise ja sakta hai space?" But he did. So Indian ingenuity, expertise, and all entrepreneurship is there. We can do it. It's an unlocking of this expertise that we need to do, and a mission mode that we need to get into. We can't say chalta hai. The problem which we have in terms of the government and the bureaucracy is those parts of the government which says chalta hai, I've been given a job, a bureaucrat who says I'm there for 3 years and I'm likely to retire. and then he's not bothered. What you read is the people who will be sitting there with a mission mode, given 5 years at a time, to make a paradigm happen. Remember the Bombay-Pune road? Remember the flyovers of Mumbai? How was it done? In record time of 3.5 years, which was unbelievable, at 1,600 crores. That would have cost you, that would cost you 16,000 crores today. The same thing. So today, it's nothing that cannot be done. We can all do it. But the idea is we need the mission mode, we need a sense of commitment, and we need execution.
Absolutely. I mean, and I don't think we can draw inspiration from anyone else than President Kalam on this. I'm so glad that you mentioned him.
One more question before passing on to Himanshu. The entire construction and real estate sector was supported by these migrant workers in Bombay and Delhi especially. Now they're gone back. How long will it take you to get them back? Will the cost go up for labor in trying to get new workers back? Questions.
Of course, the cost will go up, but that's not relevant. What is important is to understand that why do people come to cities? People come to cities because they have an aspiration.
Yes.
They get food in their village, but they're not happy. They are the aspiring part who move out of the safety and security of their homes in the villages in order to aspire for it. So what do people do? They come from the village to the small towns, from the small towns to the big towns and the big cities in the country for the purposes of an aspiration model. Why do many of them go to Dubai? Because they have an aspiration model of going to Dubai to earn a lot more, to improve the quality of life, not only themselves, but for their children and their future and the money that is there. Many of them live simple lives, but they are aspirational. All the migrant people are aspirational. Of course, they will come back, but you must provide the environment.
Houses.
Take care of them.
Yes.
Give them a proper shelter. Give them an assurance that next time something like this happens, you will take care of them.
And you'll have
Make
a
a
home.
statement that this will never happen to you again. I promise you it will never happen to you again. I commit myself to promise them. They will come back tomorrow morning.
Brilliant.
But if you don't give them an assurance and you don't look after their belief, how do you expect them to come into a burning fire when they know that you will not be there to save them from the burns that they will have? Look after them, and I'm sure they will come back. There's no reason why will not. So the answer is, they are not coming because that you are doing any favor to them. They are coming because they are aspirational. They want to have a job which is better. Why do people go on ships for 3 months and 6 months to work on the ship away from the families? Because they are aspirational. That's the main thing. So my people of India from UP, Bengal, whatever they come from, with long distances, they come here, bring up their families, want something better for their children, maybe a municipal school that they can send their children to and be able to do all this type of work. Maybe ultimately get a jhopda and something and build over the whole thing. They're all aspirational people, just like you and me and our children are. We are aspirational in a different sort of way. And they are aspirational in a different sort of way. So and they are also our people. They are the builders of our nation. Why can't we look after these people who are aspirational? If you look after them, they can create a great country.
Yes.
If with the labor that you have, your Make in India will not happen because of some industrialist putting in capital. That's all bullshitting and lies. It will happen because you have these people who are willing to do hard and diligent work to do it. Yes, we need capital, but capital is fungible. You can get it from any place in India. Enterprise you do need. We need enterprising people and businessmen who will do enterprise and be able to do it in India. That is the problem. We are not looking after the people who are doing enterprises in India. That's a shame. We don't look after the people of enterprise. And that is something which I think the government is missing out completely. Look after them. Don't look down upon my enterprise people. And the bureaucrats sometimes treat my small enterprise people so badly. And I think that also is a shame in our country. We need to look after the small and medium and small enterprises, micro enterprises, with a lot of fondness, because they are the ones who are going to cause this country to grow. It's a beautiful country, and there are beautiful people. And they are very, very hardworking people who are there. They put in their blood and soil and sweat into the whole thing. Yeah, there are young people, even among educated people. They go into the IT segments. They're willing to put in the hours in terms of call centers, software, and other things. They want to go to America. They want to have the opportunities to grow. Why not? So all is about aspirational people. Migrant laborers will come back. Will you look after them? That is my question.
That's the question.
The question is not whether migrant labor will come back. Are you having the capability of looking after my migrant labor? Are you worthwhile for them to come back to? If you are not capable and you are not good enough people, why will they come back? If you love them, if you take care of them, I'm 100% sure they will come back.
So we'll be happy to know, Niranjan, that we at IIM Indore, we are doing a study and we are interviewing several hundred migrant workers to find out what is it that will take them to go back to their places of work. So once that study is completed, I'd be only too happy to share it with you.
I would love to see it.
Yeah. Now, one thing, and this is the last question, I know that we have already overshot the time. This is out of sheer curiosity. You also mentioned liquidity, and that seems to be a problem with the real estate. But one thing that has always kind of confounded me is that while you have a lot of inventory of unfinished projects, there's also a big inventory of unsold houses. So why wouldn't the real estate bring down the prices and get rid of that inventory and hold on to them?
There are lots of smart people who have said it, including Mr. Deepak Parekh, Mr. Piyush Goyal. All of them have said exactly what you said. Let me explain you what is actually missing. There are two companies. One is called Maruti Udyog, and the other company is called Mercedes-Benz. In a single year, Mercedes-Benz sells 35,000 cars in a year, around 40,000 cars in a year. A Maruti sells 1 million plus, 10 lakh cars plus, okay? And Mercedes sells 35, 40, 50,000 cars. Right? Let's presume that Mercedes-Benz decides to manufacture 500,000 cars, not 35,000 cars, but 500,000 cars. What will happen to Mercedes-Benz as a company? It will die. It will go bankrupt. So if real estate people are not smart enough to understand that they have to market Marutis and not Mercedes-Benzes, and the demand is for Marutis, you must manufacture Marutis and you'll be able to sell it. And there'll be a queue of people for you. But if you want to make Mercedes-Benz, the number of buyers of Mercedes-Benzes are limited. So there's no issue about selling houses. We sell houses even in COVID times. So I've got demand for houses. In Thane, I've sold 19 apartments in the last 1 month, even in COVID times. Now, if you're telling me that I would manufacture those houses which are worth 10 crores and 20 crores in South Mumbai, and they're not selling because there's no capacity, and there are too many houses of that size and scale there, while there are no houses of small and that type which are there. Of course, the other problem is that the land prices are too high. The government taxes are ridiculous. The charges of the additional FSI charges are such that you can't sell anything less than 12,000 rupees, even if you are in Mulund or Borivali or Mira Road. Because if you buy the TDR and FSI from the government, the prices of TDR and FSI and from the government is so high that you have to sell it high. So those who are in the business believe that they'll be able to sell it at that high price, and the numbers will be so many, as if like you're selling Marutis. Now you're not selling Marutis, you're selling Mercedes-Benzes. So obviously there's going to be a problem for you to sell. So the answer to your question is, if you can market that type of product, which is in demand and which can fit the pockets of the people who are there, of course, the government doesn't allow you because the ready reckoner rate is too high, so you can't get the land. The government gives you the taxes which are too high, so you have to increase the prices and all those other things I'm not talking about. But on a theoretical platform, if you could mend all these factors into the situation, you will make enough of affordable housing and you'll have enough sales. Or in any location that you talk about, especially in the Mumbai metropolitan region, you can sell as much houses as you can possibly do. But okay, look at this company, India Bulls. They're making those large apartments. So, and he's selling at such big prices. Oh, I also want to make it like India Bulls has done in Parel and make big houses which will sell at fancy prices. You can't, because there is not enough demand at that segment, bigger prices which are there. So you got to understand the market. You got to see what the market can bear. And you got to price your product according to the market, provided land and other things are available in the segment that you are doing. So to answer your question directly, it's a mismatch of what you can or could produce in the real estate market to what the market can affordably buy or rent. That's the trend. So you have a mixed match. And that's why people make unauthorized houses. Every election, they make it authorized. So you get free houses from the government. So why not? You get free land because you grab the land. You make the thing. You pay some local corporator or local ward officer to give you not to break your house. You pay them a little thing and the thing goes on. And after the next election, they become official. So you keep on doing this for last 50 years. And today, half of Mumbai is in Jhopparpatti. Wow.
Or is it legal?
Voila. Voila. So you got the most affordable housing, free housing for 50% of Mumbai. You couldn't give a policy to give them housing. They've done it themselves.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Great. I mean,
Himanshu, one second. Before you give your sum up the entire thing, there's a message for the audience. We're not going to meet next week, but we're going to meet on the 2nd of July, which is the last session between IIM Indore and Free Press Journal. And we are going to have a surprise. It's going to be Narendran, Managing Director of Tata Steel, talking to you. Himanshu, your baby.
So thank you, Niranjan. It was such a delight listening.
Incredible.
To you. And if I have to take away something from this entire talk, very, very briefly, of course, for 2 years, as I told you before this talk, I have lived and worked in one of the Hiranandani places. And clearly the passion is there to see the passion with which you build. And the same passion was very, very visible today. But what was also visible was this compassion. And I think that's what makes passion worthwhile, because a lot of people have passion, but if you lack compassion, in that case, the passion can go really awry. So I think this is a big, big message to all our viewers, that it is passion with compassion that can actually change the world. And at least so far as our country is concerned, if we bring in that compassion, particularly in these times, and particularly in the context of those who are coming from the disadvantaged sections of the society, then we can build this Atmanirbhar Bharat that we've been talking about. So thank you very much, Niranjan, once again for joining us. And thank you very much to all our viewers who have been with us in this particular journey of ours. Stay home.
Thank you.
And even if you're working, stay safe, stay healthy, and take very good care of yourself and the people around you. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.